the great thing about the sport is it's played around the world. So it's the world's game. And now it's just great that St. Louis and the US and everybody is starting to get behind this game and see the beauty of it.
Welcome to a new edition of the City Voice podcast. I'm joined by a very special guest, a guest that a lot of people in and around St. Louis have been demanding comes on the show. Mike Sorber, welcome to the City Voice. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
It's been very exciting doing the research for this podcast, getting into your playing career, seeing how you've really been part of like the history of like professional men's soccer in the US for a very long time. And now you're at the academy. How have you been? How have you found being back in St. Louis, working for St. Louis City SC so far?
Yeah, both are great. It's great being back home. My wife and I have family here, so that's been super, and friends. And then now also to be able to work with St. Louis City and the professional team, mainly on the academy side for myself, it's great to be a part of it for sure.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to go through a little bit of your early days. We're going to talk about the World Cup, and then we're going to talk about your coaching career. So let's start with your roots. You grew up in a place called Dellwood, St. Louis. Tell me about Dellwood. I've never heard of Dellwood before.
Yeah, it's a little town in the middle of Florissant and Ferguson, but really it's a part of North County, which really produced a lot of talent. And my dad was a junior college coach up there at Florissant Valley Community College, which sits in Ferguson, even though it's called Florissant Valley. So unique little details, maybe a nice little triangle there, Dellwood, Florissant, and Ferguson. We're just a lot of great talent, great people. So it had the right environment and the right culture for a lot of us to develop, and it was really special for me.
So your dad, Pete, is very revered in the area. Was he the person who got you into the game?
Yeah, for sure, because he coached for 30 years at Florissant Valley Community College, and you know I was an only child, so we lived 1 mile from the campus, and so I spent a lot of time up there. It had a little gym where we could play 3-on-3. It had a big gym that was basically 3 basketball courts where we could play 5-on-5. We had Monday night games; those were legendary. And I would get to hang out with the players. You know, I was around during preseason, I was around during season, so soccer was a big part of our life. Being around him was a big part of my life, and for sure it had a huge influence on, you know, my mentality and just really the love for the game.
The expectations higher when your dad is a coach? Like, do you feel extra pressure and burden to be the standard?
No, not at all. Because, well, the world was different. There wasn't social media, and in a funny way, there wasn't even soccer on TV. The St. Louis Stars were around for a little bit, but they moved out to California when I was about 6 years old. I remember going to a game or two, actually, down at WashU. So I was always around soccer people, but there wasn't this idea or even a discussion of pressure or what do you want to do. It was just part of my life. And yeah, up at Dellwood, there was a little indoor facility. And so I started to play. I think my first team was maybe the indoor team up there. And then we had Good Shepherd was my parish. And everybody just kind of played up at the schoolyard. And so just little by little, it got started. Eventually, then there was the Florissant Cougars, and then Scott Gallagher was a up and coming club that had tremendous talent, has a great history. And, you know, and then that leads to high school and college. And then all of a sudden you're on the national team, and all of a sudden you've had a career. But I wasn't really thinking about it, and I really didn't know international soccer. So my world, maybe it was a small bubble, and it was just St. Louis.
Talk to me about your sort of high school and college days, because you were very decorated.
Yeah, Aquinas Mercy. It's a school that merged my freshman year, had not won a championship. Before that was maybe 75 and 78 with Perry Vanderbeck, a great player that came out of the high school and went to the Tampa Bay Rowdies. But again, had so many talented players come out of that high school. CBC, there were a lot of great, high school was a big rivalry. So there were a lot of good rivalries and good games that I was able to play in. And certain games, yeah, you'd have a big crowd. So that was our, that was something special for each of us to play in those games. Then, everybody in St. Louis was being recruited all over the country. But for me to stay in St. Louis, to play for St. Louis University, had a great history, great tradition. That was something special for me. So I stayed local. Funny enough, my freshman year, all my buddies from high school went and played for my dad, and that was his 10th championship in 1989. So in a way, maybe I should have went there my freshman year. But it was great going to SLU, which my junior year led to playing in the Final Four, where Bora Milutinovic was there. He came to watch Claudio Reyna and some other players. I happened to be playing against Claudio. And so that's how he found me. That led to joining the national team in December of 1991. And then in January 92, there was a group of about 30 of us, and then they kept 5 of us. And so then I stayed with the national team pretty much from 92 all the way through the World Cup and all the way through to 1998. So it was quite a road.
So describe what type of player you were.
When I was younger, well, I loved the ball. That's the first thing. And I had good vision. I could think quick because when I was younger, playing with the older guys up there with my dad, I was the little guy. But in order to survive and be able to play, you had to think quick and play quick. So I had good technique, I had good vision, and I could make quick decisions. So I could survive and play really anywhere. So I was sort of an attacking player, I guess you would call it, maybe a number 10, more on the offensive side. And then they always paired me with somebody who was really good defensively. So that was a good combination. But then when I go to the national team, then they made me a number 6. So now I'm a little more on the defensive side. So that helped develop the other side of the game for me, and maybe helped me become a little more of a complete player that way.
So you talk about the kind of like the World Cup pre-camp. Can you just give, for people that don't know, give a little bit of insight into after the 1990 World Cup, the US men's national team did things totally different. Like we haven't really seen it before. There wasn't a professional league that was fully set up here to the standards where MLS is right now. So the US men's national team did something very different.
Correct. They basically came up with the idea. They wanted to pick a location, and really the 2 locations they decided were either Orlando, Florida, or Mission Viejo, California. Bora, having been from Mexico, thought that the weather was really important for training. And the other part to that was Bora liked to train twice a day. So if you were training in that heat, I'm not sure we would have survived. So Mission Viejo, they met with the city. They came up with a training center, which now the national team is building a training center in somewhere outside of Atlanta, big training center. So it was about maybe a field and a half. It had a little building, changing room, equipment room, a training room, and a little office and maybe a meeting room. And it was just sort of off of La Paz Road. They housed us in apartments. A lot of players came in and out. Some of us were there for the full duration from January of 1992 all the way, or 93, sorry, all the way through the World Cup in 1994. So yeah, basically a lot of friendly games. We could train Monday through Friday, twice a day, maybe 9 in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe one training on Saturday if we didn't have a game, and off on Sunday. And so I don't know what we ended up with, 80, 90 friendlies, so to speak.
Some seasons you're doing like 31 games, right?
Yeah. Well, this was over the 1.5-year period where it was 80 or 90 games. Yeah. So they came up with a US Cup where maybe you would get the US, Germany, England, Ireland, Portugal. They had some big countries, big teams, big names. We were able to play in Copa America in Ecuador. And then we had the Gold Cups with the U.S. So you had those CONCACAF tournaments. And yeah, it was just, it was really, I think, Bora's idea. He had a great vision and a great understanding of what was needed to help players develop, and then how you were going to be ready once we stepped on the field come June against Switzerland in Detroit for that first World Cup game.
Did part of this approach help capture the imagination of the American public? Like, I woke up in it's not quite what it is for soccer right now. I mean, it's nowhere near. Did you have to kind of educate the public? Hey, we're here. This is us, and the big marketing plan going behind, making sure people are there.
In a huge way, yeah. People, they had no idea what U.S. soccer was, and in America, they like winners. In St. Louis, they like winners. I think every town does, and the U.S. had not won a game since 1950. Had not qualified for a World Cup until 1990. It was a big surprise that FIFA awarded the U.S. the tournament in 1994. Nobody knew how it was going to be. Personally, or for us individuals who were there training, it was a huge buildup and a big demand physically and mentally just to get prepared. But we didn't have huge support in America until the World Cup started. And then when the stadiums were full, and then the media picked up on how big of an event this was, that it was bigger than a Super Bowl or a World Series or whatever sporting event you want to come up with in the U.S., then people started to take notice. We got the tie against Switzerland. Then we beat Colombia, who were the favorites. And then things really started to take off a little bit.
Visually, I've watched lots of World Cups, but visually, that 1994 World Cup is still one of the most spectacular. Looking at the Rose Bowl on TV, I was watching videos this morning. You're like, wow, I can't believe how many people they crammed into these stadiums and how crazy people were going for it. What was it like being on the ground for those games, those events?
Well, we had a great setup. When you're with the team, you're a little more on the outside. Maybe the Olympics is a little bit different, where there's a village for all the athletes. But in a World Cup, each country gets to decide where they want to set up camp, where they're going to house the team, and how you're going to go about your business. We were down in Dana Point. Obviously, we could watch the games on TV. They were finally all televised, which was great. I guess you could say all of a sudden there were a lot more media at our practices. There were people waiting around for autographs outside the bus. And so, yeah, that part started to take off. The biggest difference would be arriving by bus into the stadium. Because normally, I don't know what we would have, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 people. That's rather small, right? And now when you're cramming 60, 70,000 people, 90,000 into the Rose Bowl, and you show up basically 2 hours before the game and the parking lot is packed, the roads are packed, people are waving flags. Yeah, that's something that we had not seen before. So that adds to the excitement, adds to the environment, and makes for a much more exciting event and definitely game.
Talk to me about the style of football, because I was soccer. I was watching the videos back. There's some beautiful football in there, like unbelievable passes, ambition. Like it felt like a very flair-led side, great athleticism, and the teams that you played were not easy teams.
No,
none of them.
We played really good teams. No games are ever easy. Everybody wants to win. But yeah, I think that's the one thing that gets overlooked with the 1994 team for sure, is the soccer IQ, the talent of the individuals, and the way we played as a team. Like you said, there's the second goal against Colombia, just one example. There's probably 12 passes that lead up to that game. And it starts on the end line with Marcelo, builds up into the midfield through the half line, and then a good through ball by Tab to Ernie Stewart. and he just plays it under the keeper's arm and in the goal. I mean, that's as good a goal as you'll find anywhere. And, we played Colombia. They were the favorites. They had beaten Argentina 5-0. A lot of people predicted they would do very well. There's some good documentaries on the Escobars or on that Colombian team and the pressure they were under, and the political influences or whatever you want to call it. But still, on the day, you go out there and you have to perform and you have to play. And we played against one of the best teams and had a good result. The next game then was Romania. They had Hadji. They had a lot of good players. That was actually our best game, and we lost 1-0. But, and then we played Brazil on July 4th. So that has a great build-up. And, we end up playing against the team that wins the World Cup. Again, we had a few chances. If you go back and watch it, they had a lot of chances, but a lot of them were offsides. So it's sort of a back and forth game. Obviously, Tab gets injured. We lose 1-0, and that's it. The World Cup's over. But I think it had a huge impact on getting Major League Soccer started. It had a huge impact on changing the perception of the media, newspapers, TV, and helped launch or build a better foundation for soccer to have a chance to grow and survive in this country. And now look where we are.
Did you feel in the moment that World Cup was going to have a lasting impact on the American psyche when it came to soccer?
You never know. I think that's hard to answer at the time because, again, people just wanted to talk bad about soccer. And look, there are some games where it can be 0-0 or just the talent level isn't there, and it can be like watching paint dry. It's tough. But when you see the game at the highest level with the best players, I mean, there's nothing better. I'm not sure there's a sport that creates as much drama or excitement, the build up, so to speak, like you said, throughout the 90 minutes, the back and forth, just look at the last World Cup with Argentina being up 2-0 and then it's 2-2, and the save that the goalkeeper makes to keep Argentina in it, and then it goes to PK. So, I mean, it's a great reflection of life and the world and the challenges and the greatness. So you have a little bit of everything, which is really special. And then clearly when a goal is scored, because it's so difficult, it's just total euphoria. And the great thing about the sport is it's played around the world. So it's the world's game. And now it's just great that St. Louis and the US and everybody is starting to get behind this game and see the beauty of it.
Do you think next summer, 2026 World Cup is going to be another turning point for the game in the US?
For sure. Look, there's going to be more teams than ever, so there will be some games that might be blowouts. I'm not sure how good that is, but again, it's a big celebration. I think I heard somebody say it's like 2 or 3 Super Bowl games every day for a while in the group stage, and so again, I think there are more people who understand the game, who watch the game, who appreciate the game, that are behind it. And I hope it opens doors and gets younger players involved and just raises the level on all fronts, so that that this sport could be eventually one day the number one sport in America.
Fingers crossed. So the upshot of the World Cup, America gets its first professional league, and you are part of that launch in 1996. 10 teams only. You are part of the Kansas side. How exciting was that for you?
Well, it was great. To finally start a league was tremendous. Before that, I was able to go down to Mexico and play for Pumas, so I was able to at least play in a professional league where it was established.
Was that fun?
That was amazing. Yeah, because obviously having white skin and being in Mexico, playing for a good club like Pumas, when I got there, maybe we were in like 15th place, and then we got all the way up to third. We went 16 games in a row without losing a game. So all of a sudden, Pumas was back on the map. Who's this American kid? And so Yeah, when you walk in this, I could walk anywhere in America. Nobody knows who I am, including St. Louis. But you go to Mexico and all of a sudden you can't walk anywhere. They know who you are. So that's something different. So to come back to the U.S. and then see the league finally get started was great. But, we were playing in football stadiums. The environment, the atmosphere wasn't great. We were training in parks. There were so many things that the infrastructure that needed to be built and improved, but the level of play with those 10 teams and the number of players that we had, it was a pretty good level.
Did you come back because you wanted to be part of the story of US, professional soccer? Because
Yes.
if you're having a good time at Pumas, right?
Yeah. In a way, I should have stayed there, but football wise. But to come back and help get this league established and get started, I wanted to be a part of that, and I wanted to help try to solidify this league. And ultimately, it was a big challenge, but it has been established. It has been solidified. It went through, a little rocky period there. Around 99, 2000, where they thought about closing the league, but luckily the owners gave it one more push, and look where we are now.
As like a pioneer player, looking, just over your shoulder, a purpose-built stadium in Energizer Park in your hometown, training grounds everywhere. Does it make you proud that you were somebody that sacrificed a bit of their career to help build this from scratch?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a piece of that. There's a lot of people, even before me, there's so many great St. Louisans that helped keep this game alive, that played in World Cups, the five guys from St. Louis, for sure. And then, all the guys that did well in college, that played in the NASL and the MISL. We're all a part of that. And so to be a part of that big group, I think that's something special for sure. And when you come downtown and you're in that stadium, man, that's a great thing to be a part of.
So you finished your career and you decide to become a coach. Was that something that was always in the pipeline for you because of, your family heritage, or were you thinking about maybe trying something different?
You never know. I don't know because of the heritage. What happened was they changed coaches down at St. Louis University, and they named Dan Donegan the coach. And he reached out to say, hey, is this something you would be interested in? And the timing fit for me. So I thought, let's see if we can continue this career. Obviously, you can't play forever, but let's continue in the game, and no better place to start than coaching.
You picked up a pretty high-profile job early on, US men's national team, assistant coach Bob Bradley. Was that, no-brainer? Like, gonna work at that level again? How excited were you about that?
Yeah, so interesting. They were pursuing Jurgen Klinsmann, and they were having some difficulties getting it across the line. So they named Bob the interim national team coach. He needed to find assistants that were free and had time. I had played for him in 2000 in Chicago, so he knew the way I thought and how I looked at the game. So he knew in January is a down period for college, and he said, hey, can you come help me out? What do you think? And I said, yeah, let me talk to Danny. I don't see it being a problem. So we played a friendly. We won. That led to another game against Mexico. We won again. And then ultimately they named him the head coach. And that's how we got started, and how I got started with the national team with Bob. Funny in a way, I was at St. Louis University as a player, and that's where Bora found me. And then I was an assistant coach at St. Louis University. Bob needed help, and I ended up going to the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. So SLU's been good to me.
What's the difference between international football and the club game? Because you have less control at international football. How does that affect?
Yeah, I mean, your window of opportunity to have an effect is much smaller. So you might have a week, you might have 2 weeks, and you just try to build on each camp that you have. On top of that, you have to keep track of a big group of players. whether they're playing in MLS, whether they're playing in Europe. And then you have to bring that group together. And it helped that we did well and won the Gold Cup that first year. That led to the Confederation Cup back down in South Africa, where we played Italy, Brazil, Egypt. Then we beat Spain and then played Brazil in the final, because that gives you a good month of work together, which is sort of like a club. The Gold Cups are good also, because if you get to a final, again, you get about a month's work. We played in a Copa America in Venezuela, where we had to bring a whole different set of players. So it gives you a good opportunity, to put each guy under the microscope. One, you get to work with him in training. Two, you get to see him in some really good games. And then ultimately, you have to figure out not necessarily who the best players are, but what is your best group when you step on the field for the World Cup. You have to be ready for that stage. And, each little step is really important.
Sometimes that's not popular, right? The social media is coming about around that time, so you're able to read criticism more directly. People want the best players out on the pitch, not necessarily the best players for the system. How hard is that to deal with? And especially because I guess your friends would be blowing you up from home, giving you your opinions.
They could. Yeah, everybody has an opinion, right? And you have tough decisions to make. I think that's what the national team has been going through in this last stretch here, right? Everybody has an opinion of who they think the best players are, but then ultimately, what does the game look like for those 90 minutes? And what do the results look like? And again, playing in a Gold Cup and you're playing at home all the time is a much different environment than playing in Copa America, where you're in Venezuela or Uruguay or wherever it may be. Playing in South Africa, you're a long way from home. There's so many different challenges that are a part of being with the national team. But ultimately, you're judged by wins and losses like every other league, like every other team.
Compare and contrast South Africa with the 94 World Cup, because South Africans came out hard for that World Cup. And the atmospheres were incredible. There was a lot of vibrancy in the stands. What was it like coaching?
Well, so the similarities are a World Cup had never been in the USA. And now you had a World Cup had never been in Africa since South Africa hosted. So there was a lot more infrastructure that needed to be built out and improved, and which we saw from Confederation Cup to World Cup. And they did an amazing job. Again, that is the beauty of the World Cup, and really what you saw in the US was the celebration of the people and all the different countries coming together. On top of it, in South Africa, you saw the pride and the passion and of such a big event coming to Africa and being a success. The Vuvuzelas were something different. They were loud, but it just added such a great atmosphere and created an environment that's really unforgettable, and what it does is it challenges the next country to try to do better and improve upon what they had. So they're both super special for me.
Are there any points when you're going through this journey where you just say, wow, what a crazy career this beautiful game has given me? Like, soccer has taken me all around the world, and I'm here in South Africa coaching, first ever African World Cup.
Yeah, and even got to meet Nelson Mandela.
Wow.
World leader. That's what's crazy about this little town of Dellwood. And it starts with a ball and a love of the game. And look where it has taken me, and people that I've met and played in these big events and in these big stadiums. It's something you can't write, and I can just be grateful that I've been a part of it.
So you come back to America, back into MLS. The league has matured. Talk to me about some of the roles that you've had in MLS prior to the one you're in now.
Yeah, so we got let go after the Gold Cup. They finally got Jurgen Klinsmann. But anyway, that led to going to work with Jesse Marsh in Montreal. And they had been in a league, but they had never been in MLS. So kind of like St. Louis getting started from scratch, we're getting Montreal Impact started from scratch. And again, all these experiences, you don't have all the answers when you show up, and there's a lot to learn when you get there. Being outside of the U.S., just across the border, Montreal is different than Toronto or Vancouver. So, personally, I had little kids and finding schools and housing and all that. But ultimately, it was a great experience. The ownership there decided they weren't comfortable with the way the season went, so they've gone in a different direction. That led me to Philadelphia. Actually, John Hackworth was there. We had worked together a little bit with the national team, so he reached out. Unfortunately, trying to get that ship going in a good direction led to him being let go, which was difficult. But then Jimmy Curtin was named the head coach, so I was able to help him a little bit. And then Bob Bradley came back to LAFC, again, starting another club from scratch. So I've seen that done a couple of times. And yeah, that was a good project. Ultimately, we won the Supporter Shield in 2019, and then you had COVID, so that derailed a few things. And then Bob and I went to Toronto, tried to get that situation changed, and didn't have enough time to get it worked out. So that led me back here to St. Louis, where I needed something. So I started working with Scott Gallagher, coached the U17 and 19 group, and then ultimately that led me here with the U16 group.
And how's that going? Talk to me about the role. What does it entail?
Yeah, assistant coach. I forgot you had asked me what other roles I had. I was director of soccer. I was technical director, assistant coach. So I've kind of done a lot of different roles. But I had a young son, and so I've worked with younger players, coached younger players as an assistant on the side. And then dealing with the academies in Philadelphia, in Los Angeles, and Toronto, I have a good idea of the challenges that those coaches, the players, what the setup is. And so coming back here to St. Louis and working with the younger players, it's great fun. I mean, you have these young players who have hopes and dreams to one day play in that stadium and become professionals. And so, yeah, I have a lot of experience and a lot of ideas, but ultimately it's about how I can, bring a group together, communicate with them, help each kid individually, because each kid is different. And you don't have necessarily the pressure or the same situation that you have with a first team, where it's a lot more wins and losses. Of course, at the younger level, they want to win also, but ultimately it's about trying to get a kid to keep moving up the ladder and ultimately try to get to the first team.
What are your coaching principles?
Well, for me, I like to look at the game and look at what teams excite me. And so for me, it's Spain, it's Barcelona, it's France, it's PSG. Argentina's great. Obviously they have Messi, but they have more than Messi. And there's a lot of similarities to what they do. So, again, they have good technique. They're able to control the ball, manipulate the ball, dribble. Then they have good decision making. They play collectively as a group. Defensively, they work together. They do a good job of winning the ball back. Ultimately, you need to create a lot of chances to score goals. So I take all those ideas and try to, again, create a culture or an environment where the kids on a daily basis are put into game situations so that they can play good soccer, good football. And with the group I have right now, so far so good. They're really fun to work with. And if you come watch the games, yeah, I think it's something different and something special.
Do you think some of the experiences you had in like the early camps that you were in, where it's like trying to build a team, like you've got a group of players, like quite often players will go out, they'll come in, like it can be a bit chaotic with roster building, like getting to chemistry and a culture quickly is probably a big part of your role. Like, how do you go about that?
Huge part. So first and foremost, they're humans, right? Before they're ever a soccer player, they're an individual. They have feelings, they have thoughts, they have beliefs. And then I have my thoughts and beliefs. So first, we have to get to know each other and you have to build that trust. And then once you step on the field, on the training field, and you create the game and you create an environment that is fun, that they love, okay, that's what coaching is, where you stop it and you start to plant some seeds and give them some ideas, and they start to see it come to life. Then I think they're a little more willing to be open to your ideas, to believe in what you're doing. They start to have success individually and collectively. And then it starts to grow. And then you see the performances on the field. You play against all different types of teams in this MLS Academy, where we can play Scott Gallagher or Lou Fuse, local teams. We can play other clubs from around the country, but then we also get to play MLS teams, where we played Minnesota, DC, we're going up to Chicago. So everybody has different ideas about how the game is played. But I have a strong belief in how I think our group should be, what qualities I think are really important, and so far so good.
Does it help those players being at a club where they see McSorley scoring a brace on his debut? Does that sort of pathway to the first team, like you can literally see where you could play, is that a big driver in motivation and success? And is that something that you can use to, as a carrot?
Yes, I think there definitely needs to be a connection from the first team all the way down. And again, like I said, they have hopes and dreams. They need to see that there are other players that have made it. You can also use other examples like a Messi, right? He's playing in MLS. And you can say, okay, here's how the best player in the world plays. Here are some of the details of what he does, how he thinks, how he executes. There's no reason why you can't do that, right? That doesn't mean you'll be Messi, but there's a simplicity and a way in which he does certain things that really anybody can do. But the simplest thing is really the hardest thing to do. Otherwise, everybody would do it, right? But for sure, when they see, McSorley is a good one because he's got drafted, played in college, so they can see that connection to get to the first team. These kids also, a lot of these kids have come from the local clubs, in my team in particular, Scott Gallagher. So that club has done a really good job of creating the kids when they're little, a way of working with the ball and playing in small groups and small numbers, which is a really important period for development. Because once you get here at 14 years old, 15 years old, actually it's a little bit late. It's critical to have those kids at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, spending a lot of time with the ball and creating the soccer IQ. And then, they ultimately get to this academy and you have some of the better players together. And again, every step is important to try to get to that first team, but you can't really fast forward it or skip steps. Everyone is important.
A lot of becoming a professional to the level that you played at is the mental side of the game, like technique and ability. If it's not matched by strong mentality, doesn't really count for much. How do you coach mentality?
Well, I'm not sure you can. I think an individual either has it or he doesn't. Now, what happens is you have kids that have tremendous skill, and there's numerous examples of kids that have been drafted, have been homegrowns that get into the league and ultimately they don't make it because of the mentality. Now, you can work around that and try to help them understand what hard work is, what competing is, what a day-to-day mentality of being prepared, showing up, consistency. There's a lot of words we can use that you can talk around it or show examples. But ultimately, if the individual doesn't have the heart or the mentality or the desire, I'm not sure you can implement that. But again, if within your team it's a good competitive environment, if they go up to the second team and they see, wow, this is faster and it's a challenge, but I can try to figure this out, I think that mentality can continue to develop and improve and grow and ultimately prepare them for making it at the highest level.
A lot of the players that we've had on the podcast always have a real moment of adversity, whether it's an injury, whether it's being overlooked or being dropped. Are those tools that you can help players with? Because it's not necessarily a specific mentality. It's like, bad ACL injury or something like that is something that's a shock to the system. How do you work in those moments?
Yeah, again, I think you need to be supportive. It helps verbally to talk through it, to work through it, and to show examples of guys who've had injuries that have overcome adversity and gone on to make it. Development is not a straight up process. There's ups and downs. And one of the things I tell the kids is, look, at this level and in the academy, it's not about mistakes. Everybody's going to make mistakes, but it's the next play that's the most important play. And so if I can see that the ideas that you're trying to implement, even if it's not done successfully, we have a chance to get somewhere. And so if you have an injury, but you're putting in doing the rehab and doing all the hard work, again, all these pieces sort of come together where you can say, look, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You can get healthy, you can get back on the field, and you can still make it. It's possible. Just like when you're training, okay, it's not working yet. Maybe you're a little bit smaller, you're a little bit weaker, you're a late developer, whatever it is. There's numerous examples of great players or some of the best players in the world that were almost cut. But ultimately they pushed through. Somebody gave them a chance. Somebody has to believe in them. Maybe I'm that person. You never know who is going to be the person that helps you in your career and ultimately get you to the highest stage.
How proud does it make you to see players getting call-ups? Because there's a number in your group that have got call-ups to the US team.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say really happy for the kids, but I just started working with this group. So they didn't get called up because of me. They got called up because of, Anthony Wallace or guys at Gallagher that have helped them to this point, right? I just happened to start in January, and, I think these guys were already on the radar of the national team. They had done well. And so, yeah, I think as a club and individually, you're always excited for these kids to go in with other kids from around the country to challenge themselves and to see where they're at. And you hope that they keep pushing through and ultimately they get to the first team. And I always say, it's great to be on the youth national team, but it's really great to be on the full national team.
And you mentioned some of the coaches that surround you or in and around the club. Like, what's the relationship like with between the age groups? Like, how often do you communicate? Like, what's the conversation like?
Yeah, I would say almost daily. I think collaboration is really important in an academy, between Dale Shilley being the academy director, between all the coaches at all the different levels, between sports science, goalkeeper coaches. I think on a daily basis to have conversations about players or about the game, about trainings. Ultimately, it takes a village to make this thing successful, and you never know where you can get good ideas. and somebody can help you. So yeah, that part's been great.
And you're very experienced, been around the game for a long time. Do you still try and keep sharp with the latest innovations? Like where do you teach yourself, and where do you how do you push yourself as a coach?
Yeah, well, yes, I love to watch the games. Again, Barcelona's great. Whether it's the Euro, again, you can see how the game is played, the speed of play, and then you take some of those ideas and then you come up with ideas to put it into use and practice. I think is the best way that I've found to continue to develop, to continue to have an open mind, to continue to grow. Because ultimately, if you stop growing, you that's no good. You're not going to get anywhere, and the game continues to evolve. So, I'm still in contact with Bob Bradley. We send stuff back and forth. His son Michael is at Red Bull. Still in contact with Jesse Marsh. With other colleagues that are still in the game. Yeah, I think it's a good way to share ideas.
Coaches Union is strong.
It is strong.
What would be your kind of key piece of advice for any kids listening to this that really want to break into the game? I want to push myself as far as possible. What's the one thing that you would recommend?
The one thing I recommend is you have to spend a lot of time playing small-sided and individually. You have to get comfortable. You have to get good with the ball. If you're not good with the ball, it's difficult to do anything else, technically or tactically. And then to develop that soccer IQ, you have to play a lot. You have to be in a lot of environments that challenge you. It's good to play different positions, especially when you're younger, because you can learn something from any position. And it helps to give you a perspective about all the different challenges that each individual faces in each of those positions. So the more you can play, the better chance you have.
Mike, there's a tradition on the podcast, and it's the last message is for you to speak to the fans of St. Louis. If you've got a message to them about whether they come down to see the games or, just like what you're going to bring to the club.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I'm excited to be back in St. Louis, and it's great to be a part of St. Louis City. So the more that we can get out and support the team and support the academy, the second team, all the different levels that we have here, I hope to be around and be at as many events as possible, and hopefully I get to see everybody out there. So I look forward to seeing this great soccer community.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time. That takes the podcast to the end of the show. Mike, that was an absolute pleasure. If you are listening to this and you're on your podcast, get into that app, give a 5-star review and say how much you enjoyed listening to Mike talk, and hopefully we can get him on again next season. And on that note, I'll say ciao for now.
Ciao for now.